Before we begin, take a long breath in and let it out slowly. Whatever the day has brought you, it has now passed. Whatever is waiting for tomorrow will come in its time. But for now, you are here, in this quiet space, and you need not do anything at all. Let your shoulders fall. Let the weight behind your eyes drift like mist in the night. You have arrived at the moment where stories drift into sleep and time loses its shape. Tonight's journey is not a grand one. There are no heroes waiting in armor. There are no dragons or queens or revelries in halls of stone. There is no escape, no triumph, and no great moral to uncover. There is only a space, a small, quiet space made of stone and silence, tucked away in the folds of medieval time. We will be stepping into a cell, a medieval prison cell, a place not remembered for light, or peace, or mercy, a place designed not for punishment, but for waiting. You would not be sentenced to prison in the way you might today. You would be placed there until something else happened, until a trial, until a decision, or until someone remembered you were still inside. Most of the time, the door would shut behind you with no sense of how long it would remain shut. The length of your stay might depend on your crime, but more often it would depend on the mood of the lord who controlled the land, or the chaos in the courts, or whether anyone still spoke your name. Some cells were carved beneath castles, dank, windowless rooms, where rats and mildew shared the space with the forgotten. Others were built into city towers, with heavy wooden doors, iron bolts, and straw scattered across a floor that had not been cleaned in years. But all of them, in one way or another, were the same. They were places where sound died quickly, and where the only company was your own thoughts. The walls might have been stone, cold in winter, damp in spring, insects crawling through tiny cracks. Your hands might trace the outlines of centuries. Graffiti etched into the surface, names of others who had sat where you now sit. Some scratched a tally of days, others wrote prayers, some carved nothing at all. Your cell may have had a slit window high up, offering no view but a ribbon of sky. Perhaps a single beam of light moved across the wall at midday, giving you the only way to measure time. Or perhaps there was no window, only the faint flicker of torchlight from the hallway when a guard walked by. If he walked by, and time in such a place does not flow. It pools, it collects in corners, stagnant and thick. You do not feel the hours pass, you feel them press against you, quietly. You begin to mark time not by day or night, but by the scrape of a food bowl against the floor, or the distant cough of another prisoner, or the sound of your own breathing in the dark. There are no books to read, no bed to lie on, no mirror to check your face, just the silence. And your body, your skin becomes your map, your breath becomes your rhythm. You begin to notice every twitch, every sigh, every blink. The smallest things stretch out, like shadows at sunset. You may try to remember what brought you here. A stolen apple, a debt unpaid, a rumor told in the wrong ear, but eventually the reason dissolves. In this place, guilt and innocence are often lost beneath the dust of time, and so you wait. Not for rescue, not for redemption, but for the next small moment to arrive. A creak, a voice, a footstep, anything. That is what we will explore tonight. Slowly, gently, without hurry or fear. You do not need to stay awake for all of it. You may drift. You may let your mind wander like smoke curling through cracks in the wall. There is no wrong way to listen. We begin with your arrival, with the moment the door closed behind you and the silence began. There is something almost timeless about the quiet of confinement. When the world outside moves forward, with its markets and church bells, with its harvests and hearth fires, the world inside remains still. It is not stillness of peace, nor of clarity, but of absence. Absence of motion, of voices, of warmth. You are not entirely cut off, but you are separated just enough for your memory to grow louder than the sounds around you. Sometimes, in the distant corners of your mind, you may remember the feel of wind, not a violent gust, not a storm, but a soft breeze lifting the hair on your arms, or the feel of sun through fabric on a slow morning, the glint of light on a tin cup, the heavy smell of bread pulled from the oven. And these memories do not come in order. They come in fragments, scattered like dry leaves across the stone floor of your thoughts. You do not even always remember your own face. There is no mirror in this place. There is only the shape of your hands, the weight of your knees pulled to your chest, the sound of your own voice. If you dare to speak, some prisoners speak aloud, just to hear something. Others whisper their thoughts, as if worried someone may hear them, even though no one ever does. The guards do not often speak. When they do, their words are short. Orders, warnings, occasionally a name, but mostly they pass by as shadows with keys. The sound of iron against iron, a jangle, a turn, a bolt, sliding, then fading footsteps again. In their silence, you are reminded that the world continues beyond your door, that time still moves for others, and yet for you, time curls in on itself. You start to notice the language of the stone. The walls breathe in moisture and exhale cold. You can run your fingers along the roughness and find ridges, dips, imperfections that form their own kind of map. You begin to feel every crack and remember its shape. They are familiar in a way no person here will ever be. The floor is uneven. Perhaps it dips in the center where centuries of prisoners once stood or sat or wept. There might be a patch where moss has started to creep in, softening one corner with a thin veil of green, or a stain left from something long ago, the origin of which is better left unknown. Your clothing grows worn. You begin to feel the threads fraying along your sleeves. Your collar, the scent of the fabric has faded. Now it carries only the scent of damp, of sweat, of dust and age. You scratch at your arms, your scalp, unsure whether it's the dirt or the silence that itches. You might hear other prisoners, though not always. Some cough through the night, a low, rattling cough that reminds you how thin the walls truly are. Sometimes there's weeping, not loud, but quiet, like someone trying not to be heard. Other times you hear nothing at all, and that is the most unsettling sound of all, the sound of total stillness. Food, when it comes, is not presented with care. A bowl is pushed beneath the door, a scrap of bread, a ladle of gruel. Sometimes warm, sometimes not. There is no cutlery, no ceremony, only sustenance. You eat slowly, not because it is enjoyable, it rarely is, but because it gives your hands something to do. The act of chewing becomes a task, a rhythm, a brief occupation of the body. There is no privacy here. Every motion you make is exposed to the watching stone. Every sound you utter, every gesture, every breath is absorbed and echoed back in faint tones. You exist in full view of no one, and yet you feel watched, not by people but by the centuries themselves. The weight of time becomes tangible. You do not count the days, because the days no longer count you. You are not sure what brought you here anymore. Perhaps you remember the trial, or perhaps it happened without one. Maybe you were caught, maybe you were blamed, maybe it was just the wrong face in the wrong place on the wrong day. Guilt is irrelevant here. The walls make no distinction between justice and error, and so you retreat inward. You revisit moments of your life that had once passed unnoticed. A flicker of light on a river's surface, the hum of bees near a fig tree, the voice of your mother calling you for supper. These moments rise to the surface, not because they were important, but because they were real, more real now than the walls around you. If you are lucky, you dream. Dreams become your escape, even if they are vague and directionless. In them, you are not confined. You walk again. You see faces. You forget, even for a moment, that the cell exists. But dreams are brief, and waking comes not as a jolt, but as a slow remembering of stone, of silence, of the fact that nothing has changed. And in that remembering, you return to the rhythm of survival. Not active, not defiant, simply present. You stretch. You breathe. You sit against the wall. You close your eyes again. You listen for a sound that might never come. And when your thoughts begin to slow, when your body softens with sleep, you feel yourself drift, even in the dark. This is not the story of punishment. It is the story of presence, of existing in a space that forgets you, of holding on to your own memory when nothing else remains. And as your breath slows, as your thoughts loosen their grip on meaning, you settle into the heart of that space, into the place where sleep begins, where walls blur into shadow, and where time no longer follows the clock, but the beat of your own breath. Let the door close. Let the light fade. Let us begin the first true moment of this day, the moment you arrived. And if you are still with me, if your breath is steady and your thoughts gentle, know that this is only the beginning. The day is not yet fully formed. The cell, while quiet, still holds echoes you have not heard. You are not meant to rush through it. You are not meant to conquer or escape it. You are only meant to experience it, moment by moment, as it unfolds. This place, this narrow shape of life, between four unmoving walls, becomes a vessel for thought, for stillness, for reflection that serves no master but the self. And though the door is closed, your mind remains free to wander, to settle, to listen. So we begin not with struggle, but with surrender, with the calm breath of someone who knows there is nowhere to go, and no need to hurry there. The first chapter waits quietly. The arrival, the crossing of the threshold, the final glance at the world outside, and the first taste of air that does not move. Close your eyes, if you haven't already. The cell is ready. Let us begin. The days before this one are now like smoke, impossible to grasp, yet faintly scented with something familiar. You try to recall what you last saw before the door closed behind you. Was it the grey edge of morning? Was there a bird on the rooftop? Did the guard meet your eye? Or was he just another blurred figure moving through the roles he did not question? And how long ago was that? An hour? A day? A week? Inside these walls, you do not count hours in numbers. You count them in thoughts. In the shifting ache of your legs. In the number of times you've traced the grooves in the stone beside you. In the number of times you've listened for the sound of the guard and heard nothing. But even this is something. Even the emptiness has shape. Even the silence has character. It does not comfort you, but it does accompany you. And somewhere in that companionship, you begin to change, not all at once, not dramatically, just slowly. You accept, you do not resist. There is no storm left in you now, only a quiet sea. So before we step fully into this day, into the moment of your arrival, into the sounds and smells and textures of the cell that will surround you, let us pause one more time. Let the final threads of the world outside unravel. Let your breath become your anchor. Let stillness settle into your hands. And now we begin. Chapter 1. The Arrival. It begins not with a shout, not with a sudden cry, or the clang of iron on iron. It begins, as so many endings do, with a simple walk. You are led, not dragged. You are not struck, not pushed, just walked, from one place into another, from noise into silence, from the edge of the world into its hollow center. The corridor is long, stone beneath your feet, rough, uneven, perhaps damp. The torchlight flickers against walls that were not cleaned recently, or perhaps ever. Each step is muffled, though you cannot say why. Is it the moisture, the closeness of the air, or simply the weight of what lies ahead? The guard beside you, if he is a guard at all, does not speak. He does not look at you. His face is drawn tight, not cruel, but tired. He has done this before, perhaps today, perhaps 100 times this week. His hand rests on a key ring that sways as he walks, and the keys chime together softly, an accidental melody that feels too delicate for this place. The corridor narrows as it turns. The air thickens. The scent shifts. It is not foul, but it is ancient. The kind of air that has touched too many walls, absorbed too many stories, lingered too long. A blend of mildew and metal, straw and sweat. You breathe it in, slowly, And though you do not want to, you begin to memorize it. There is a door ahead. Wooden, dark, not rotted, but worn. Its edges are rounded by time. The bolt is rusted, but it moves when pressed. You watch as the guard lifts the key. His hands are calloused. The key enters the lock with a sound so soft, you barely register it. A turn, a click, a pause. The door creaks open. He does not gesture. He does not explain. He only steps aside. You enter, and in that moment, the rest of the world ceases to exist. The room is not large, perhaps the width of your outstretched arms. The length of 2 paces, the ceiling is low enough that you feel it, though you do not touch it. The walls are stone, coarse, cold, slightly damp. The floor is harder than you imagined. Straw lies scattered in one corner, flattened, darkened, used. There is a bucket, there is a bowl, there is a slit in the wall, high up, too narrow to be a window, but enough to allow a shaft of light to find you sometimes. And then, the sound. The door closes. A slow, heavy thud, followed by the slide of a bolt, and then nothing. No footsteps, no retreat. Just the door, just the quiet, just you. You do not speak. There is no one to speak to. You do not move. Not at first. You simply stand in the middle of the space and feel the shape of it surround you. It is not just the size of the room. It is the size of the silence, the size of the waiting. Your eyes move across the walls. Each one tells the same story. Stone pressed upon stone, chiseled, stacked, forgotten. There are marks, some intentional, some not, scratches, carvings, initials maybe, tally marks, almost certainly. A line here, a symbol there, stories left behind by those who also stood where you now stand. You lower yourself to the floor. It is not a decision. It is simply what the body does when it no longer has purpose. The cold seeps through your clothing. You do not resist it. You feel it in your thighs, your spine, your hands. You sit with your back to the wall and close your eyes, not to sleep, but to listen. You hear nothing. No birds, no carts, no bells, no laughter, only the faint sound of dripping water, somewhere, and the sound of your own breath. The cell is a space that teaches you quickly. You are alone, and you are here, nothing more, nothing less. There is no threat in it, but also no comfort. You are not being harmed. You are simply being kept. Time begins to slow. You have not been here long. And yet already you feel the seconds stretching, your thoughts expand. You become aware of your heartbeat, of your knees, of a strand of hair brushing your forehead. Every detail takes on new meaning, simply because there are no others. You think about the last time you saw the sky. Was it blue? Were there clouds? Did you look up? Or were you focused on the ground, on the man leading you, on the door ahead? You cannot remember. You touch the wall beside you. It is solid, cold. Your fingers trace the grooves of ancient stone. You wonder how many others have done the same. How many hands have tried to find comfort in this same texture. How many souls have passed time here. Not in words or deeds, but in quiet survival. And as the minutes continue, you begin to forget why you are here. Not in the sense of confusion, but in the sense that it no longer matters. The charge against you becomes irrelevant. The accusation, the names, the papers, they are not in this room. Only you are. Only this moment is. The walls do not speak, but they listen. Every breath you release is held by them. The cell does not echo. It absorbs. It takes what you give and gives nothing back. The stillness becomes a companion, not a kind one, but a faithful one. It never leaves. It never shifts. You begin to lie down. The straw crinkles beneath you, and the unevenness of the floor sends a slow ache up your back. You do not expect comfort. You do not seek sleep, but still your body obeys the gravity of fatigue. Even silence is tiring, especially silence. Your eyes trace the ceiling. A single cobweb dances slightly in an unseen breeze, perhaps from the slit in the wall, perhaps from the breath of the cell itself. You stare at it, not because it is interesting, but because it is there, something to focus on, something that exists outside of your own mind. Your feet are cold, your fingers tingle. The stone beneath you does not grow warmer. It remains what it is, indifferent. This cell has no anger. It has no malice. It is not a punisher. It is simply a space that holds, a space that forgets. The hours pass, or so you assume. Nothing changes. The light does not shift. No sounds come. You feel hunger slowly build, but it is not urgent. It is dull, familiar, a shadow of need rather than a cry. You wait, not because you expect something, but because you have no choice. You begin to count your breaths, not aloud, only in your head. 1, 2, 3. Each one, a marker. Each one, a reassurance that you are still here, that you are still you. And then at some point, you hear footsteps, soft, slow, deliberate, the sound of leather on stone. A key, a hand, the door creaks. A bowl is placed inside. Bread, perhaps, a ladle of water. You do not rise quickly. You do not thank. You only move, slowly, as if pulled by strings long detached from purpose. The bowl is rough, wooden, stained. The bread is coarse. The water tastes of metal, but you consume it, carefully, without ceremony, without comment. And then, the door shuts again. No words are spoken. The silence returns, as if it never left. You set the bowl aside. You lie back down. You stare upward. You wait. The arrival is not a moment. It is a process. You did not enter the cell all at once. Your body did, but your mind takes longer. It resists. It protests. And then gradually, it settles, like dust. You begin to notice things that were invisible before. The tiny whorls in the stone, the way one edge of the wall curves ever so slightly inward, the faint scratch of vermin in the corner, the memory of warmth on your skin, not now, but long ago. Perhaps you hum to yourself, a song from childhood, a chant from the chapel, a tune with no words. It does not fill the space, but it moves through it, and that for now is enough. The cell accepts you, not as a guest, not as a prisoner, but as a fact, and as you curl into yourself once more, as the chill wraps gently around your ankles and your breath slows into rhythm again, you understand, this is not a beginning or an end, this is simply the arrival. At some point, your thoughts begin to drift in circles. You think of the path you walked to reach this place, though you remember less and less with each attempt. You recall the scent of smoke in the streets, the worn soles of your shoes against stone, the eyes of someone watching from a window. Or did you imagine that? You're no longer sure. The mind, when deprived of stimulation, becomes a slow painter. It reuses old colors, old images. It pulls from memory, not what was important, but what was available. A piece of embroidery, a pattern on a rug, the taste of figs. These thoughts become your entertainment, your noise, your light. You wonder if this room has ever seen sunlight directly, if at any point in its long life, the rays of morning or dusk ever touched its center. The slit in the wall suggests the sky, but offers no details. You begin to watch that slit more closely. It becomes your horizon, your window to something else, a way to mark not time, but change. However small, you shift your weight. One side of your body has gone numb. You roll gently, so as not to disturb the dust, the quiet, the strange calm that has settled around you. Your fingers move over the straw again. You pick out a single stem. You hold it between your fingers like a reed, then drop it. It lands without a sound. The ache in your legs tells you you've been still for too long, so you stretch them out, flex your toes, crack your knuckles. All of these tiny acts become rituals, not for health or purpose, but to remind yourself that you still inhabit your body, that you are still more than just a presence in this room. You look toward the door. It has not moved. Of course it hasn't, but you check. just the same. Its iron hinges hold it tightly. The bolt remains in place. You are not forgotten, and yet you are not remembered either. You simply are. Sometimes that is the hardest part, not knowing how long, not knowing what next. The absence of direction is not freedom, it is drift. And yet, in that drifting, you find yourself slowing, softening, loosening the hold on questions. Eventually, the questions fade. Your hands relax, your eyes blur, your breath evens out. You are not asleep, but you are no longer entirely awake either. This is the arrival, not as an event, but as a condition, a quiet crossing from one life to another, a breath taken not in defiance or in fear, but in stillness. You have arrived. And now, the day begins. And as you sit there, the cell holding you as the day folds into itself, you feel something curious, not peace, not contentment, but the absence of struggle, the absence of resistance. You no longer reach for the outside. You no longer try to name the hour. You have given yourself fully to the now. That is what the arrival truly is. Not the closing of the door, but the opening of acceptance. You are here. You exist. You wait. The sounds beyond the walls remain faint. Distant metal. The creak of leather. A cough, perhaps. But none of it enters. None of it asks for you. You lie back down. The straw settles beneath your weight, and the chill of the floor greets you once again. This time, you do not tense against it. You let it rise and pass, like a tide brushing the shore. Tomorrow is a thought you will meet later. For now, this is enough. Chapter 2. The cell. There are walls, that much you know, but over time they stop appearing as boundaries. They become companions. At first, they are simply stone, rough, cold, silent. But the longer you remain, the more they reveal themselves. Not through sound or movement, but through presence, through texture, through their refusal to change. You begin to study them, not with curiosity, but with necessity. You need something to do, something to understand. So you watch them. You run your fingers across the stone, tracing the unevenness, feeling the faint ridges where mortar has worn away. One wall feels slightly damper than the others. One has more markings. You assign meaning to these differences, even though they have none. Because meaning, like warmth, is something you must invent for yourself. The cell is neither large nor small. It is the size of what you can see when you sit in the center and turn slowly. A square, mostly. A slight recess in one corner, perhaps from erosion or poor design. The floor is stone, like the walls, but more worn. Generations of footfalls have smoothed it in places, and in others, it still holds its sharpness. A low ceiling presses down, not in threat, but in quiet dominance. You cannot stand fully upright in every part of the room, and so you learn to adjust. You crouch, you tilt your head. The body adapts faster than the mind, and long before you accept the confinement, you have already molded your posture to suit it. There is no furniture, no bedding save for the scattered remnants of straw in one corner. They are not clean, they are not fresh, but they are there. They offer the illusion of softness. You pull a few strands together, shaping a small pile beneath your shoulder as you lie down. It helps a little. The cell has a scent. At first you flinch from it. It is not foul, but it is heavy, earthy, metallic, tinged with decay. But eventually, it becomes part of the air you breathe. You no longer separate it from the air itself. It is just what here smells like. A blend of mold and iron, of time and rot and dust. If you were to leave, you imagine the scent would cling to you. You wonder how long it would take to wash away, or if it ever could. Insects live here, though you rarely see them. You feel them more than you witness them. A tickle on your arm, a tiny sting, a rustle near your ear in the quietest part of the night. You stop swatting them eventually. There's no point. They are as much a part of the room as the walls are, and the room is quiet, not silent, never truly silent. There is always a sound if you listen long enough. A drop of water, the groan of old wood, the scrape of something unseen, the murmur of your own thoughts. Your cell becomes your world. You begin to name its features, even if only in your mind. The darkest corner becomes the night. The warmer wall becomes the sun. A crack in the ceiling, just a thin one, barely wide enough to see, becomes the line. These names mean nothing, but they anchor you. There is a slit in the wall, near the top, not large enough to see through, but wide enough that air finds its way in, sometimes light too. A beam, narrow and weak, but present. You watch it shift across the wall. It moves slowly, so slowly that it feels like it's not moving at all. And then, an hour later, you realize it's gone. This is how you mark time now. Not by sun or shadow, but by presence and absence. The cell does not change, and that, oddly, becomes a kind of comfort. In a world where everything else has been stripped away, where you have no name, no schedule, no mirror, no horizon, the fact that the stone remains the same day after day is strangely reassuring. The walls do not forget you. They do not judge. They do not leave. They only remain. At night, or what you assume is night, the air changes. It grows colder, heavier. The stone, which always felt cool, now presses its chill deeper into your skin. You curl against the wall, trying to conserve warmth, but there is no true escape from it. Cold in a cell is not sharp. It is dull. It is steady. It becomes a second skin. Sometimes, in that stillness, you speak, not words with meaning, just sounds. You murmur to yourself. You hum, a broken lullaby, a rhyme from childhood, a phrase that returns unbidden from some earlier life. You don't speak to be heard. You speak to remind yourself that you can. You wonder how long the cell has existed, not in years but in people. How many souls have sat where you sit? How many have pressed their palms to the same patch of wall? How many have watched that same sliver of light drift and disappear? You begin to imagine them. A thief, a soldier, a woman accused, a child perhaps too young to understand. You see their shadows against the wall, overlapping with your own. You do not fear them. You welcome their imagined company. It makes the cell feel less like a tomb and more like a storybook, one made only of presence, never of plot. The bowl in the corner still holds the remnants of your last meal, bread hardened into a crust, a bit of water at the bottom, warming slowly from your breath and the air. You do not clean it. There is no point. There is no next person to use it. There is no one to inspect your habits. You could break it. You could throw it, but you don't. Because it is yours. Because it has shared your time. And then, as you shift your legs again and stretch your shoulders, you feel the dull ache in your joints. The cell teaches you about your body in ways no other place does. You feel the strain of stillness, the stiffness of limited space. You rotate your arms slowly, stretch your fingers wide. Even this hurts after a while. But pain too becomes part of the routine. Not sharp, but present, like a memory that won't quite leave. Sometimes you find yourself staring at a single point on the wall. You don't know why. A dark spot, a crack, a discoloration. It holds your gaze for what feels like hours. It becomes a focal point, a meditation. The wall does not offer answers, but it listens. In its quiet, in its firmness, it becomes the one thing that always remains when everything else fades. The cell has no clock, and yet you feel time differently now. It's no longer a progression. It's a shape, a rhythm. You know when food will come. You know when light will appear. You feel these changes in your bones before they register in your eyes. And sometimes, you forget your own name. Not fully, not permanently, but it slips from view. It floats away, like dust in the corner. You try to summon it, and it returns slowly, reluctantly, as if annoyed at being called. Your name was something used by others, but here, there are no others. So what use is a name? In that space, in that slow forgetting, You begin to feel a new kind of stillness, not of body, but of self. You are not what you were. You are not what you will be. You are only here in this cell, with these walls, with this breath, and that is enough. You begin to lose track of the days. At first, you tried to mark them in your head. You counted meals, you counted the times the light came through the slit in the wall. You remembered the rhythm of the guard's footsteps, but now those counts blur. They overlap. You're no longer sure if you've eaten twice today or only once. The difference feels meaningless. Even your body seems to let go of the schedule it once followed. Hunger fades. Sleep arrives when it chooses, not when summoned. You doze in strange positions, waking with aches you can't place. Your dreams, when they come, are fragments, images of doors that never open, rooms that shift shape, faces that never turn around. And yet, in this dissolution of time, you feel more connected to your surroundings than ever before. You notice every sound, a pebble skittering across the floor, a breeze slipping through the slit in the wall, a rat scurrying along the edge of the stone. None of these surprise you anymore. They are all familiar guests. You begin to speak to the cell. Not often, not loudly, just when it feels right. A whisper, a question. Sometimes you narrate your movements aloud. I'm standing now, you say. I'm sitting back down. You do this, not because you expect a reply, but because the act of naming brings shape to the fog. You start to hum. Songs long forgotten resurface, melodies with no words, or words with no meaning. The tune floats through the air, echoes softly off the stone, then disappears into the stillness again. Sometimes you repeat it, sometimes you change it. The music is not for anyone, it is only for now. And then there are the marks, the ones carved into the wall by others. You spend hours studying them. One is a series of tallies, uneven and slanted. Another is a crude drawing, perhaps a bird, perhaps a man. One etching looks like a name, but the letters are worn beyond recognition. You trace them with your fingers. You imagine the hands that made them, the thoughts behind them, the long hours that passed during their creation. You wonder if you should add your own mark, a line, a symbol, something small, something real. But you hesitate. To carve something is to admit that you've stayed, that you belong to this place. And though you no longer resist it, part of you still holds to the idea that this is temporary, that the door will open again, that there will be a next chapter beyond these walls. Still, your hand hovers. You press your thumb into a crack. You consider what it would mean to leave a trace. You do not carve today, but perhaps you will tomorrow. The cell, once unfamiliar and harsh, now holds a strange comfort. It is not warm, it is not kind, but it is constant. And constancy, in a world that forgets, is its own form of grace. You curl into the same corner as before. You breathe the same air. You listen to the same silence. And for the first time, you do not count the minutes. You do not count the cracks in the wall. You simply lie still. The cell does not ask anything of you. It does not demand strength or sorrow or prayer. It only asks that you be here. And so, you are. This is your world now. 4 walls, a ceiling, a floor, a slit of light, a bowl, a breath. And in this stillness, in this slow surrender, the cell becomes something else. It becomes yours. And so you rest. Not because the day is over, for days no longer matter here, but because you have done all there is to do. You have observed, you have breathed, you have remembered, and now you rest. The cell watches. The walls stand, and your breath, slow and steady, continues. For now that is all there is. And it is enough, even now, as you close your eyes and allow your thoughts to dissolve into the rhythm of your breathing. The cell holds you in its quiet way. You are no longer waiting. You are no longer resisting. You are simply existing, surrounded by stone, embraced by silence, and softened by time. The cell does not care how many days have passed. It does not measure progress. It only remains, and in that stillness, so do you. One more breath, one more moment, and now you sleep. Chapter 3. Light and Time. Time does not pass in the way you remember it. In the world beyond these walls, time is measured in tasks and bells, in footsteps and conversations, in shadows that move across the room as the day grows older. But here, in the stillness of this cell, time changes shape. It no longer marches. It hovers. It hovers in the dimness. It thickens in the corners. It waits just like you. There is a small slit in the wall, high above you, narrow. Perhaps a hand could pass through it. If your fingers were thin enough, you cannot see the sky through it. Not properly, just a faint suggestion of what lies beyond. But it is enough. It becomes your clock, not a precise one, not dependable but present. When the light comes, you feel it, and when it fades, you notice. It is not always the same. Sometimes it arrives as a faint grayness, other times as a golden streak, slanting through the dust and settling against the opposite wall. On rare days, it carries warmth, a warmth so subtle that it makes your skin tighten, your breath pause, your eyes close without thought. You savor it. Not because it lasts, it never does, but because it reminds you that the sun still exists, even if only in rumor. When the light comes, you move closer to it. You sit where it touches the floor. You extend your legs into the patch, watching the light ripple across your knees. You hold your hands in it, turning them slowly, seeing the red of your skin glow faintly beneath the warmth. It feels like something holy, not in the sacred sense, but in the rare sense, a visit from something distant and kind. And then slowly, it fades. Not all at once. The beam contracts, the grey returns. You watch it go as you might watch a departing figure on a long road, not with panic, but with a quiet longing. You do not try to stop it. You only watch. You only remember. Darkness does not fall here. It grows. It begins in the corners, then thickens behind your back, then takes the walls, the floor, the air. Eventually, the cell becomes whole again. Solid, shadowed, still. You do not fight the darkness. There is nothing to fight. Instead, you learn to see differently. Your eyes begin to notice the faint outlines of shapes, the curve of the bowl, the crumple of straw, the slow movement of your own hands. You blink less. You breathe slower. The cell is no longer black. It is soft, washed in ash. A quiet cave with no edges. And time within this place continues its slow unraveling. You begin to notice patterns, not schedules, for nothing here is consistent, but rhythms, a certain time of day, or what you believe to be day, when the air feels lighter. When the sounds outside the cell become more frequent, footsteps, a cough, the drag of something across stone. You do not know what causes these moments. You only know they repeat, not precisely, but often enough to mark. You mark them not with scratchings on the wall, but with memory. You remember the warmth, the sound, the feeling of light on your eyelids. These moments become landmarks, small islands of familiarity in the endless sea of sameness. Sometimes the light wakes you. You lie with your back to the wall and feel it creeping across your feet. You do not open your eyes immediately. You simply feel the way it slowly stretches, inch by inch, a movement so patient, so gentle, that it feels like being touched by time itself. When you do open your eyes, the light blinds you, briefly. You blink. You adjust. You turn toward it, not because it is bright, but because it is honest. The only thing that has not lied to you, the only thing that comes without demand or condition. In those moments you feel less alone, not connected, not quite, but remembered, as if the world has not entirely forgotten you, as if the sun, in its vast distance, still reaches out to the place where you sit and wait. You begin to follow the light more closely. You measure your days by its appearance. You orient your body to match its position. You move your bowl into its path. You place your hands flat on the floor and let the warmth seep into your palms. You close your eyes and let it fill the space behind them. Even your breath seems to change in the light. Slower, deeper. You hold it sometimes, just to feel it there, just to notice that it exists, that you exist, that your body still responds to the world beyond the stone. And when the light fades, you do not mourn. You only notice the day dissolves. The walls return to grey. Your hands fall back into shadow. You stretch your legs. You roll your neck. You do not speak. There is nothing to say. Only this: you were here. You saw the light, and now it is gone. The absence of light is not the same as darkness. It is something quieter, something more complete. You begin to feel it in your bones. Your breath grows shallower. Your limbs become heavier. You move less. You think slower, as if your entire being mirrors the fading of the day. In these moments, you begin to imagine time not as a line, but as a circle, each day folding into the next, indistinguishable from the one before, each night washing over you like a tide, then receding without memory. You do not live in moments. You live in cycles, breathing in, breathing out. Eyes closed, eyes open, warmth, then chill, sound, then silence. Again and again, there is comfort in repetition, even when it offers nothing new, even when it brings no change. It gives shape to the formless. It gives rhythm to the void. Sometimes, the light returns earlier than expected, or perhaps it is not early. Perhaps you simply woke sooner. You don't know. The slit in the wall offers no answers, only presence or absence. You stop trying to predict it, you only respond. And with every return of light, you begin to notice something else: the dust. Dust dances in the beam like tiny ghosts, invisible until the sun reveals them. They drift, weightless, aimless. You watch them as you might watch stars. They move with no urgency, no fear. They simply exist, suspended in the shaft of gold. You find yourself reaching toward them, not to touch, but to witness. Your fingers move through the light, disturbing the dust, reshaping its path. It is the only thing here that moves when you move, the only thing that reacts to your presence. You begin to speak to the light. A whisper, a word, sometimes just a sound. You do not expect it to answer. You only want it to know you're here. The dust becomes your sky, your stories. You create constellations from the way it moves. You trace imagined maps with your fingers, the land of sleep, the river of memory, the hill of forgotten names. And in that moment, you forget the walls. You forget the door. You forget the cell. There is only the light, only the dust, only you, sitting cross-legged on a cold stone floor, weaving stars from particles no one else will ever see. But the light never stays. It drifts away, as all things do. The dust settles. The gold fades to grey. You watch the shadow stretch, then break, then disappear. The beam, once sharp and clear, becomes a memory on the wall. You sit in the same place, but now everything around you feels farther away. And yet, the room does not become empty. It becomes quiet. The kind of quiet that has depth. The kind of quiet that holds stories. You close your eyes, and you feel it pressing in, not like a burden, but like a blanket. The cell does not mourn the light. It has seen it come and go too many times. You begin to sleep when you are tired, not when it is night. You wake when the light arrives, or when the cold touches your skin a little too deeply. Time has loosened its grip on you. The hours, the minutes, they no longer hold meaning. You count your life now in breaths and silences, in light and shadow, in stillness and movement. You lie on your side, facing the wall, your hand resting where the light once was. And you remember, not a specific day, not a person, but a feeling. The feeling of standing under an open sky, the warmth of sunlight on your back, the sound of leaves moving in a breeze, The memory is not clear, but it is enough. And so you hold that memory. You hold it through the dark. You hold it through the stillness. And when the light returns, when it slowly spills once more through the crack in the wall, you do not reach for it. You only breathe. You only open your eyes, and you begin again. You begin to understand that light is not a moment, it is a relationship. A silent visitor that does not ask to be noticed, but lingers long enough to be remembered. Its presence is not something you control. You do not earn it. You do not summon it. It comes when it does. It leaves when it must, just like all things. And in that rhythm, you find peace. Not joy, not relief, but peace. The quiet acceptance that some things remain beyond your hands, and that not everything must be held. Some things are meant only to be seen, to be welcomed, to be let go. You begin to track your breath again, to follow the rising and falling of your chest. Each inhale a small sunrise, each exhale a dusk. You become your own measure of time. A clock with no ticking, a calendar with no numbers, a sun that rises and sets within you. Eventually, the wall where the light lands begins to change in your mind. You see it even when the light is gone. You remember its angles. You trace its edge with your eyes closed. That wall becomes your horizon, your day, your guide. And with that, the cell becomes less a cage and more a chamber, not of punishment, but of patience, of being, of breath. The light will return again tomorrow, or not. Either way, you will be here, breathing, watching, waiting. And in that waiting, time continues. Not as a wait, but as a whisper. You close your eyes. The walls hold you. The quiet deepens. The light, though gone, lingers still behind your eyelids. Sleep comes slowly, gently. Time continues. You rest. And when your eyes open again, hours later, or maybe only moments, you do not ask what time it is. You do not wonder how long you slept. You simply breathe again. You listen. You stretch your fingers and feel the stone beneath them. There is no rush, no need to begin anything. Time is already flowing, quietly, around you, through you. You are part of it now, and that is enough. Another day will come, though you won't know it by name. Only by the glow on the wall, only by the slow awakening of breath and limb. And when it does, you will rise, not out of duty, but out of rhythm. Because even here, in the absence of clocks and calendars, time lives in your body, and it moves forward, gently, with you. And in that movement, slow as it is, life continues. Not loudly, not with fanfare, but with the same soft persistence that brings morning after night, warmth after cold, and light after darkness. So you breathe again. You sit in the silence, and you wait for the light to return. Chapter 4. Food, if any. There is no schedule, no tray slid across a counter, no clatter of utensils. There is no warmth that announces mealtime, no scent of cooking, no steam rising from pots. There is only the quiet, the same quiet that holds your body and slows your thoughts. And somewhere inside that quiet, eventually, there comes food. It does not arrive with ceremony. It does not come with explanation or apology. A bowl, pushed through the door, a hunk of bread, if you're fortunate. Some days there is a ladle of broth, thin, cloudy, bits of something floating within. You cannot say what, and after a time you stop asking. The bowl is wooden, or maybe tin. It changes, or you imagine it does. You no longer remember the first one. The edges are worn smooth, or they were always that way. You touch it before you eat. You hold it in both hands. You study the surface, not because it matters, but because it is yours, for now. You bring the food to your lips, slowly, always slowly, not out of reverence, but out of caution. Sometimes it is cold, sometimes it is too hot. Often it is flavorless. You do not eat for taste, you eat for presence, because the act of chewing reminds you that you are still alive, that your jaw still works, that you can still swallow. There is no spoon. You dip your fingers or tilt the bowl. You wipe your lips with your sleeve. You eat everything, even the things you might once have set aside. In here, nothing is wasted. Not a crumb, not a drop. You do not know who prepares the food. You never see them. It is not served. It is delivered. An offering left in silence. The person behind the door is invisible. Their voice unheard. You imagine them sometimes. Are they kind? Are they bored? Do they notice which bowl comes back empty? Do they care? You want to ask. Just once. Not for more. Not even for better. Just for the reason. Why this food? Why now? Why at all? But there is no asking. There is only taking, quietly, with both hands. And when the meal is done, you place the bowl back by the door, not because you were told to, but because it feels right, because it marks the end of the moment. A small ritual in a world that offers none. And then you wait, not for the next meal, but for whatever comes next. Hunger, sleep, a memory, a sound. You wait, and the cell waits with you. Hunger becomes a feeling that lives in your bones. It no longer sharpens the way it used to. It no longer commands your attention with growls or pangs. Instead, it settles in, a quiet companion, a gentle, ever-present hollowness that hums beneath the surface of your thoughts. You learn to live beside it, to move with it, to hold it the way you might hold a stone. Something heavy, something constant. It shapes your posture, it slows your breath, but it does not stop you. At first, you measure your days by food. A meal means a morning, or perhaps an evening. You try to guess the time by the temperature of the broth, by the consistency of the bread, by the mood of your own stomach. But time, here, does not hold to logic. Sometimes meals come closer together. Sometimes they are far apart. Sometimes they do not come at all. You wonder if it's a mistake, if someone forgot, if the world outside has shifted in ways that the cell cannot understand. But there is no way to know. No window, no explanation, only the quiet, only the ache. When food does not arrive, you do not panic. You feel the pang, you let it rise, you breathe. You lie down, you place your hand over your stomach and wait. Hunger, like silence, deepens with time, but it does not consume you. It only reminds you that your body still waits for the world. And sometimes, you dream of food, not feasts, not tables piled high, but simple things. A boiled egg, a piece of fruit, a cup of milk. You see them with aching clarity, the sheen of skin on an apple, the steam rising from a bowl of lentils, the sound of a crust being broken. You taste them in your sleep, and when you wake, you can still feel them on your tongue, but the bowl in your cell is empty, or missing, or perhaps you imagined it was ever there at all. You do not cry, you do not curse. You rise, you sit against the wall, you press your back to the stone, and let the dream dissolve. The hunger stays, the silence deepens. You breathe, and you wait. You remember how food once felt, not just the taste, but the presence of it, the routine, the warmth, the act of lifting a spoon to your mouth, of passing a plate, of hearing another voice say, "Eat before it gets cold." You remember the way your hands moved, not in desperation, but in comfort. You remember the clink of pottery, the scrape of bread on a wooden table. These memories become more than memories. They become company. Sometimes you recreate meals in your mind, not elaborate ones, just a single bowl. You imagine preparing it, stirring gently, adding herbs, watching the bubbles rise to the surface. You can see the color, smell the broth, feel the steam on your face. It is not real, but it is enough to make you close your eyes and smile, and then you open your eyes, and the cell returns, but the smile remains. That smile is not about food. It is about the memory of enough, of being full, of being cared for, of a world where food came with conversation, where it arrived with purpose, where you sat across from someone else, and the act of eating was more than survival. It was a way of saying, "I am here, you are here, and we share this moment." There is none of that in the cell. Here food is only necessity. It does not come to comfort you, it comes to keep you alive. And even then, not always. Some prisoners, you imagine, eat fast. They devour their food as soon as it arrives, fearing it may be taken away. Others ration, stretching a crust over hours, sipping water as though it were wine. You fall somewhere in between. You eat slowly, not because it is precious, but because it gives your hands something to do. It breaks the stillness. You study the bowl again. You trace the rim. You tap its side. The sound it makes is hollow, soft, like a knock on a distant door that will never open. One day the bowl does not arrive. You wait. You listen. You breathe, but nothing comes. You lie back, staring at the ceiling, your fingers resting where the bowl should have been. The hunger is deeper today, not sharper, never sharper, but heavier. You feel it in your eyes, in your joints, in the way your thoughts drift more slowly. Still, you do not panic. You do not beg. You wait, because here, waiting is what you do. You begin to notice how hunger changes the way you think. Your mind moves slower, like a river thick with silt. Thoughts come in fragments, a face, a color, the sound of oil crackling in a pan. But they do not stay. They pass through you like shadows. When food does return, it arrives without warning. No knock, no voice, just the scrape of wood on stone. You reach for it slowly, uncertain if it's real. Your fingers curl around the bowl. The shape is familiar. The weight is different. You lift it to your face and inhale. It is warm, not hot, not fragrant, but warm. A broth, watery, but present. A few grains, a shred of leaf. You sip. The warmth travels down your throat and settles in your belly like a memory. You drink slowly, grateful not for the flavor, but for the sensation. You eat in silence, always in silence. There is no one to ask how it tastes, no one to refill your bowl. You sit cross-legged, bowl in hand, as if at a ceremony of one. When the bowl is empty, you do not move. You hold it in your lap. The warmth fades, the silence returns, and you are still here. Sometimes the food upsets your stomach. It is old or undercooked, or simply strange. But you do not complain. You endure. You curl up. You breathe through it. Your body will forgive, or it won't. Either way, you remain, and with time, hunger becomes something more than a need. It becomes a rhythm, a quiet hum behind your ribs. It does not scream. It waits. You begin to understand that in this place, food is not just sustenance, it is proof. Proof that someone still knows you are here. That a hand beyond the wall placed bread in a bowl and thought for a moment of you. And that is almost enough. You do not know how long you have been here. You no longer try to guess, but you remember every meal, not because they were remarkable, but because they marked time. A bite of carrot, a crust of bread, a ladle of beans. Each one a moment, a memory. And when the food comes again, as it always does, eventually you receive it without words. You lift the bowl, you close your eyes, and you begin again. Later, much later, when you lie curled in the corner again, empty or full, you can no longer tell. You trace your stomach with your fingers and breathe deeply. The hunger is not gone. It never is, but it has softened. It hums rather than gnaws. You think again of shared meals from another life. You do not crave them. You do not ache for them. You simply hold them, like photographs folded too many times. They are creased and faded, but still clear enough to see. A table, a bowl, a hand passing a ladle, a voice asking, "Is that enough?" And now, here in the stone quiet of your world, you answer that old voice in silence. But clearly, yes, you think. For today, this is enough. You pull the straw closer. You wrap your arms around yourself. You listen to your breath, to the stillness, to the faint echo of a bowl being taken away. You have eaten. You are alive. And tomorrow, perhaps, the food will come again. And if the food does not come, you will wait again, because waiting is what the cell has taught you, because hunger, like silence, does not end. It only deepens, softens, becomes familiar. You will rise, you will sit, you will breathe, and you will wait for the sound, the soft scrape of a bowl against stone that tells you the world still remembers you exist. And in that waiting, you do not feel despair. You feel continuity. You feel the rhythm of survival, quiet, steady, uneventful. And as your eyes begin to close again, you know that hunger may return, but so too will the bowl, and so too will you. This is the pattern now, the quiet offering, the quiet acceptance, a bowl, a breath, a memory, and beneath it all, a truth you carry gently, that even in the smallest act of eating, there is still life, and life in its simplest form is still worth holding. And so you breathe, once more, and wait for the next small mercy to arrive. This is not the feast you remember, it is not the table you once knew, but it is still a part of life, still a part of breath, still a part of you. You close your eyes, you feel the hunger quiet, and you whisper, not to anyone, but to the moment itself, I am still here. Chapter 5. Sleeping. Sleep in the cell does not come when it is called. It comes when it must. Not as a guest, not as a comfort, but as a weight, a pull behind the eyes. A slowing of thought so gradual that you barely notice it happening. You do not lie down to sleep in the way you once did, with a bed waiting, with covers pulled to the chin, with a pillow shaped just right. Here, sleep begins from stillness, from sitting too long against the wall, from closing your eyes just to rest them, and waking hours later with a stiff neck and no memory of having drifted off. There is no real place to lie down. The straw is scattered, flattened, worn through. You try to gather it. You sweep it toward the corner with your hands. You press it down, but it never feels like enough. Still, you lower yourself onto it. Bones first, carefully, slowly. You curl into yourself. You wrap your arms around your ribs. You tuck your knees close. This is your posture now. Not of rest, but of containment. You become aware of every sound. A shuffle outside the cell. A crack in the wall. The wind, maybe if it is wind. You do not expect silence, but you do not fear the sounds either. They pass, like thoughts, like hunger, like time. You lie with your eyes open first, staring at the low ceiling, watching shadows shift as your breath rises and falls. Your breath becomes a rhythm, a gentle tide within you, in and out. Slow, deliberate. You count each one, not to fall asleep, but because it gives shape to the space. There are no blankets, no warmth, except what your own body provides. You shiver sometimes. You pull your tunic tighter. You cover your feet with your hands. You rub your arms. The cold teaches you to move less, to conserve, to wait. Eventually your eyes close, not in surrender, in inevitability. Your mind drifts, not into dreams, but into something smaller, quieter. You forget where your hand rests. You forget which way your head is turned. You forget the time, not because it has passed, but because it no longer matters. There are dreams, but they do not always feel like dreams. Sometimes they are only images. A light through a window, the sound of a door, the warmth of a hand you cannot see. You wake from them unsure if they happened at all, unsure if you were truly asleep, or only drifting in the space between waking and rest. The body learns to rest in pieces. First the legs, heavy and numb, then the arms, folded in, the back, sore but still, the eyes closed, not because they are tired, but because the darkness behind the lids is softer than the darkness of the room. You do not toss, you do not turn. The floor will not allow it. You shift your weight gently, slowly. You move one joint at a time. You learn how to lie in a way that hurts the least, and that is how you stay. Sometimes the cold wakes you. You do not know how long you've slept. You curl tighter. You breathe through it. The ache in your spine, in your hips, in your shoulders grows familiar. The kind of discomfort you no longer question. You do not wake fully. You hover between sleep and awareness, between numbness and thought. The cell is different in sleep. It breathes with you. The walls recede slightly. The stone becomes less present. You are not free, never free, but you are distant, far from the feel of your own skin, far from the memory of food, far from the idea of morning. There are no roosters, no bells, no sun to greet you. You wake when your body says it is time, when your breath changes, when your limbs begin to move again, when your fingers curl and flex, when you feel the weight of yourself return. And when you wake, it is not sudden, it is not dramatic. There is no alarm, no startle, only a slow remembering, a quiet resurfacing. You open your eyes to the same ceiling, the same light, the same shadows. You do not rise immediately. You lie there, staring at the wall, feeling your body reacquaint itself with the air, with the cold, with the shape of the room. And then gently, you sit up. There are days when sleep escapes you entirely. You close your eyes. You adjust your body. You breathe slowly. But it does not come. Your mind remains alert, not anxious, just present, too present. You listen for silence. You count the cracks in the wall. You follow the movement of your own breath until it becomes too loud, too steady, too much. You think about the sky. You try to recall its exact color, the difference between midday and dusk, the softness of cloud edges, the way it looks just before rain. These thoughts lull you sometimes. They carry you towards sleep, but other times they float just out of reach. Memory becomes a kind of noise, a gentle disruption. You shift your body again, slowly, always slowly. The floor is no softer than before. The straw is not enough, but you try anyway. You press your cheek to your arm. You pull your knees tighter. You imagine warmth. Sleep does not answer imagination. You lie still again. You listen to the sound of rats, to the creak of something wooden, to the occasional drip from above. Your mind finds patterns in the sounds, repeats them, follows them, until they become lullabies. Simple, unchanging, loops of comfort. Eventually, sleep returns. Not as relief, not as reward, just as a fact. Your body gives in, your thoughts slow, your breath settles, the cell remains unchanged. But you are no longer fully here. In sleep, your cell becomes a different place. The walls stretch, the ceiling lifts, doors appear where none were. You walk down halls that twist and turn. You open doors that lead nowhere. You see faces that do not speak. You hear voices that do not belong. None of it frightens you. It is not a dream in the way dreams used to be. It is simply the mind unfolding, quietly, like smoke in a still room. And when you wake, whether minutes or hours later, you are surprised. Not because you slept, but because you returned. Your fingers find the stone floor again. Your breath is real. Your arms ache. Your stomach turns. You are awake, and the cell remains. You sit for a while after waking. You do not rise all at once. You stretch your legs out slowly. You roll your shoulders. You touch your knees, your ankles, your face, reorienting yourself to your own body, as though returning to a home you'd been away from. There is no way to know how long you slept. No way to know if it is morning or evening or some strange hour in between. The light from the slit above is too faint, too indirect. You guess by the feeling in the air, the weight of silence, the clarity in your chest. But it's only a guess. You think about sleep as a kind of hiding, a soft retreat into something less hard than stone, less certain than silence. You do not crave it, you do not run from it. You accept it the way you accept hunger or the way you accept walls, as something constant. When it comes again, You do not resist. You do not prepare. You simply lower your head. You let your arms curl in. You breathe, and you go. Sleep, in the cell, becomes something like a second self. Not a place of dreams or escape, but a place of suspension, of waiting without awareness, of drifting without fear. Sometimes, you do not dream at all. You wake as if nothing happened, as if your breath never paused. Your limbs are heavy. Your mouth is dry. You blink at the ceiling and begin again. Other times, dreams find you, not as stories but as echoes. Images, a forest, a fire, a child's voice, a bird on a window ledge. You do not chase them. You let them pass through. You let them fade. You never tell anyone your dreams. There is no one to tell, but even if there were, you wouldn't. Dreams, here, are too soft to hold. They slip through fingers. They dissolve in speech. You rise. You drink water, if there is any. You adjust your clothing. You pull straw back into place, and you lie down again. Because often, sleep returns more than once. Sometimes in one night. Sometimes in one day. Sometimes in the middle of a thought. You close your eyes, the cell stays, and you go. There are nights when the cold wraps around your legs like water. You curl tighter. You pull your arms in. You rub your hands together and tuck them under your clothing. You think of fires, not grand hearths, just small ones, coals glowing in a pan, a flicker against a stone wall. You do not expect warmth. You only remember its shape. Your body grows thin with sleep. You lose track of weight, of muscle, of edge. You float through the hours. You forget how many times you've slept. You forget what it feels like to wake with purpose, but you still wake. And every time you do, you rebuild the moment. You sit up. You gather the straw. You adjust your limbs. You breathe. You wait. Sometimes, sleep feels like the only kindness the cell offers. It does not ask questions. It does not make promises. It simply arrives. It allows you to vanish for a while, and sometimes you resist it, not out of fear, but out of sorrow, because sleep means another passage of time, another piece of life you won't remember, another drift into the grey. But eventually, the body always wins. Your back to the wall, your head tilted, your arms folded, your breath deepens. The sounds of the world, if they were ever there, fade. And once again, you are elsewhere, until you return. You wonder sometimes how many others have slept in this space. Not their names, not their stories, just the shape of them, the curl of a spine against the wall, the hush of breath in the night, the soft shuffle of a body adjusting to the ache of stone. You feel them in the straw, in the worn places on the floor, in the marks left on the walls. Sleep is not just something you do, it is something you share. And as you lower yourself once more, letting gravity take you inch by inch into the quiet, you feel that connection to silence, to those who came before, to yourself. Your eyes close, your fingers still, your chest rises and falls, and sleep returns. Not as escape, but as a soft reply to a question you stopped asking long ago. And in that silence, in that breathless stillness between one thought and the next, the cell watches over you, unchanged, unmoving, as sleep carries you far beyond its walls once more. You do not remember falling asleep. You never do. Sleep in this place is not a door you step through. It is a mist, a quiet sinking, and when it comes, you go with it, not knowing how, or why, or when you'll return, only trusting that you will, that the breath will keep moving, that the body will keep turning, that the cell will keep holding, and that sleep, like everything else here, will come again. And so you sleep, again and again, until sleep becomes the only time that feels like freedom. And that, for now, is enough. Chapter 6, Sanitation and the Chamber Pot. The cell does not smell clean. It never has. You stop expecting it to. The scent of damp straw, old stone, rusted metal, and human presence is constant. You breathe it in without noticing now. It becomes the background, a quiet layer of unpleasantness that no longer shocks, only lingers. There is no running water, no basin, no bucket of clean cloths, nothing to scrub with, nothing to pour, nothing to rinse. Your hands, your feet, your body, all must make do with stillness and small gestures. You rub your palms on your tunic. You wipe your face with the corner of your sleeve. You shake dust from your fingers and hope it falls away. But there is one object that commands its own attention. The chamber pot. It sits in the corner, never far from your resting place, a dark shape with a wide mouth and a heavy scent. It is metal, mostly. Sometimes ceramic, sometimes cracked. Its edges are rough, and its purpose is unmistakable. It is not hidden. There is no curtain, no partition. It is there, like the walls, like the straw, unmovable, unignorable. At first, using it feels impossible. You wait, you try to hold, you count hours, you press your knees together and will the moment away. But the body does not obey shame. It obeys need. So eventually, you go. Quietly, carefully, you shuffle to the corner, turn your back to the door, crouch low, and hope your body will be quick. There is no flushing, no washing, no forgetting. What you leave behind stays with you, in scent, in sight, in the air. And then you return to your space, the same space where you sleep, where you eat, where you think, now shared with the remains of necessity. You learn to breathe through your mouth, to avoid looking toward the pot, to accept its presence as part of the room, part of the rhythm. The chamber pot fills, slowly, day by day. There is no schedule for emptying it. Sometimes, if you're lucky, a guard comes and takes it away. He might bring a fresh one. He might not. Sometimes you wait days. You push it as far from you as the cell allows. But the cell is small. There is no truer way. The flies come, tiny ones. They hover, land, vanish, return. You swat them without thinking. They always come back. You learn to ignore them the same way you ignore the cold. The same way you ignore the itch on your skin that can't be scratched away. You begin to notice how your body changes with the limits of sanitation. Your skin grows rough. Your fingernails darken. A film settles over your teeth. Your hair becomes heavy, dull. These are not things you can fix. They are just things you observe, quietly. Without resistance, you no longer feel the urge to be clean. You feel the memory of it. You remember washing your face with cold water in the mornings. You remember the weight of a damp cloth in your hand. You remember the smell of soap. But these are just thoughts now, small comforts of another world. Here, cleanliness is not a goal. It is not a virtue. It is a luxury, one you have not seen for days, weeks, longer perhaps. Your body adapts. Slowly but surely, you learn to live with what stays on your skin. You no longer flinch at the touch of your own filth. You do not wrinkle your nose. You do not recoil. This is the body now, the body in confinement, and the chamber pot remains, quiet, unchanging, a silent witness to every hour. There is a quiet humiliation to it all, not sharp or sudden, but slow and heavy, like the cold. You feel it in the first days, the way you hesitate, the way you glance toward the door before you move. But after enough time, even that fades. Embarrassment becomes impractical. There is no one to hide from, no dignity to defend. You learn when to go. You time it with silence, with darkness, with your own stillness. You grow attuned to your needs in a new way, not from control, but from constant presence. There are no distractions here, no walls between you and your body's rhythms. The smell is always there. It becomes something your mind folds into the shape of the room. You stop noticing it in detail. You no longer recoil. It is part of the air, part of the breath, part of you. And still, there is the matter of waste. Not just human, but emotional, mental. You feel the waste of time, of waiting, of not speaking. The waste of memory, as details blur. The waste of your own former self, clean, ordered, prepared, now distant, now almost unreal. Sometimes you dream of water. Not oceans, not rivers, just a basin, a cloth, a splash across your face. You dream of wiping your arms clean, of scrubbing beneath your fingernails, of rinsing your mouth and spitting into a drain. You dream of the sharp scent of vinegar, the softness of warm cloth. You wake with the feeling still in your palms. But the dream fades, and the stone remains, and the pot, always the pot. In some cells, it is shared. In others, replaced less often. You begin to understand how quickly the body produces what it cannot keep, how natural it is to leave part of yourself behind each day. There is a lesson in it. One you did not choose, one you did not seek, but it arrives all the same. You begin to observe the chamber pot as a marker of passing days. Each time it fills a little more, it tells you time has moved. It becomes a calendar of sorts, crude but constant, a reminder that even when the world beyond these walls forgets you, your body continues forward. On the rare days when it is taken away, you feel relief, not joy, not celebration, just a small easing, a bit of lightness in the air, the absence of that particular weight. And when a fresh one appears, it is almost beautiful in its emptiness, a clean beginning, a silence waiting to be filled. It is the only thing in your cell that changes with any regularity. The walls do not move, the door does not open, but the pot, it fills, it leaves, it returns. You begin to see it differently, not as a shameful object, but as a necessary one, not a source of disgust, but a symbol of survival. As long as it is used, it means your body is still functioning. It means you are still alive. You do not speak these thoughts aloud. There is no one to speak them to, but you carry them quietly, the way you carry everything now. Sanitation becomes internal, not the cleanliness of skin, but the clarity of thought, the attempt to remain human in a place built to strip that away. You cannot wash your face, but you can remember your mother's hands. You cannot rinse your mouth, but you can hum a song beneath your breath. You cannot change the air, but you can choose how you breathe. The cell teaches this, not quickly, not kindly, but thoroughly. There are moments when you catch yourself apologizing, not aloud, not to anyone, just internally, for the smell, for the presence, for your body's unyielding needs. You are sorry to the walls, to the floor, even to the air, but there is nothing to apologize for. You remember that the body is not wrong. It is not shameful. It is not a failure. It is simply a body, doing what bodies do. You begin to understand how society shapes your sense of worth around cleanliness, around presentation. And here, stripped of all that, you learn a new kind of worth, not found in appearance, but in endurance, in persistence, in the quiet will to keep breathing. Your fingers grow used to grime. Your skin becomes a map of neglect, but still, you touch your chest when you breathe. You count your ribs. You stretch your arms when the cell is still, and let your back press against the stone, not for comfort, but for connection, because even this is a kind of life. You remember that not everyone has endured this, that many would break, that many have, and that you, still here, still breathing, still using the pot, still standing after it, a part of something ancient, something resilient. You find yourself muttering sometimes after using it, not in disgust, but in ceremony, a thank you perhaps, or simply the echo of your own voice, reminding yourself that you are still here, that this is still happening, that your body, with all its mess, is still yours. The chamber pot is not sacred, but it is central. It is a quiet altar to survival. You approach it, not with reverence, but with resignation, and over time, with calm, and always it waits. Patient, silent, full. There are no windows in your cell, just the slit for air. No breeze ever finds its way in. The air is stale, warm, and often still. The scent of the chamber pot thickens during the midday hours. You come to recognize the heat, not just by sweat or light, but by the density of the smell. And yet, somehow, you continue. You eat near it. You sleep near it. You think near it. It becomes part of every action, part of every breath. The body does not rebel. It adapts. It endures. Sometimes you talk to it, not as a joke, not in madness, just softly, because it is the only thing that stays with you. That changes, that acknowledges, in its own way, the fact of your existence. Your body leaves marks here, and the pot records them. You do not name it, but you know it well. You know the way the light hits it. At certain hours, you know the sound it makes when moved. You know the moment when full becomes too full, when the air grows sharp with ammonia, when your own nose flinches without meaning to, and you wait for the guard, for the sound of boots, for the door to open, for the brief exchange, pot out, pot in. No words, no nods, no acknowledgement, just the trade. You come to appreciate that ritual, its consistency, its quiet. You learn that even the most unpleasant routines can become comforting when everything else is uncertain. And when you receive a fresh pot, empty, clean enough, you feel a strange kind of renewal. You are no cleaner. The cell is no brighter. But the weight has shifted. For a moment, at least, it is not freedom, but it is movement. It is a cycle. And in prison, even cycles are precious. In the end, the chamber pot is not just a vessel for waste. It is a mirror. It reflects your condition, your endurance, your daily pattern of survival. Its presence reminds you that even here, where dignity is denied and privacy erased, the body continues, quietly, persistently, without apology. You rise. You relieve yourself. You sleep beside it. You wait for it to be changed. You wait for yourself to change. And in that waiting, in that strange companionship with something so base, so unspeakably human, you find a rhythm, and somehow that rhythm is life. You do not bless it. You do not curse it. You simply live with it. And for now, that is enough. And with each day, you accept a little more. Not as surrender, but as survival in its quietest form. It is not cleanliness, but it is constancy. And sometimes, that is all the body needs to go on. Chapter 7. Interrogation and confession. There is no warning, no sound of boots, no barked command, just the creak of the door. It opens slowly, the iron hinges groaning in a way that makes your teeth clench. You do not move. You have learned not to. Movement is not safety here. Movement is permission, and you are not ready to give it. A shadow enters first, then a figure, cloaked, hooded, or perhaps bareheaded. The details blur. What you remember is the feeling, the sudden cold that rushes into your chest, the stillness that locks your limbs. This is not a guard come to bring food. This is not the bucket man. This is not routine. This is different. This is what you've been fearing. They say nothing at first. They don't need to. Your body already knows. Your heart is pounding. Your throat dry. You try to breathe slow, not show it, but every part of you is aware that you are being watched, weighed, measured. Then the words come, low and deliberate. Come. You rise, not because you want to, not because you understand, but because you must. The walk is silent, stone beneath your feet, cold air in the corridors. You pass doors, others like yours, some with sounds behind them, some utterly still. You wonder who walks these same steps, who came back, who didn't. You don't ask where you're going. You already know, or you think you do. You've heard the screams. Not many, not often, but enough. The room is different from your cell, larger, dimly lit. You notice a table first, not polished, not clean, but solid, heavy, meant to stay where it is. Beside it, a chair, not for you. Yours is smaller, lower, less steady, by design. There are no tools in sight, but you know they exist. You feel them, even if they're hidden. Their absence is theatrical. The room doesn't need to show them, it only needs you to imagine them. They tell you to sit. You do. The man, if he is a man, speaks slowly, not with anger, not with force, but with control. Every pause, every glance. Calculated, he does not raise his voice. He doesn't need to. Power. Here is quiet. He asks your name. You give it. He asks where you were. You answer. Then the questions twist. Not what did you do, but why did you lie? Not who did you help, but why are you protecting them? It is not an inquiry. It is a script. You are already guilty. The questions are not for discovery. They are for confirmation. You begin to explain. At first with logic, with order. But logic is not welcome here, nor is truth. They are things to be bent, cut, restitched. He speaks of evidence you haven't seen, names you don't know. He tells you what you did, how you did it, as if your silence is admission. You try to breathe through it, try to remain steady, but your voice falters, your palms sweat. This is only the beginning. Time loses shape in that room. You do not know if it's been 10 minutes or an hour. There are no windows, no clocks, only the questions, and the stare, and the air that seems to grow heavier the longer you sit. Sometimes he stands, walks behind you. You can hear the floor creak, feel his presence shift. You tense without meaning to. The body reacts on its own. Every step he takes becomes a message, not in sound but in silence, the kind that stretches across your shoulders, down your spine. He doesn't always touch you, but when he does, it's not violence, not yet. It's suggestion, a grip on the shoulder, a tap on the table, the kind of touch that tells you something worse is coming, but not just yet. He offers you a way out. Just confess. 2 words, simple, delivered without menace, but you hear what they carry, not mercy, not closure, just the promise of less pain, not no pain, just less. You shake your head. He asks again and again, until the room becomes an echo of that offer. Just confess, just confess, just confess. But confess to what? You try to think clearly. You try to focus on what is real, what is true, but the questions blur. Your answers feel distant, stripped of power. Then he grows quiet, the kind of quiet that feels louder than shouting. He leans in, and the next phase begins. There is no sudden burst of violence, just a change in tone. A longer pause between words, a look held a few seconds longer. You feel it before you understand it, the shift from questioning to conditioning. They are not after information anymore, they are after surrender. He brings a parchment, unfolds it slowly, slides it across the table toward you. It is blank. He says nothing, only taps it once, then leans back in his chair. You stare at it, then at him. You know what it is. Not a confession, not yet, just the shape of one. A canvas for your guilt. All you have to do is fill it in. And maybe the questions will stop. Maybe the hours will pass more gently. You pick up the quill, but your hand does not move. He watches you with a softness that unsettles you more than anger would. Like a father waiting for a child to come to their senses. Not cruel, not kind, just confident. Confident that you will break, that everyone does. You set the quill down. He nods, not in disappointment, not in approval, just acknowledgement. A move has been made. The game continues. Then he stands and leaves you in the room. Minutes pass, or maybe hours. When the door opens again, another man enters, or perhaps the same, in different light. You can't tell. He does not speak. He places something on the table, a cup of water. You do not know if it's meant as kindness or bait. You drink it anyway. It tastes like dust and tin. The second man doesn't ask questions. He simply observes. His presence is the question. You sit there trying not to fidget, trying not to blink too often, but the quiet is invasive. You feel the silence press in on your chest like a weight. It grows until you begin to fill it with your own thoughts, of guilt, of doubt, of imagined punishments for imagined crimes. Then the second man speaks. I heard you had something to say. You shake your head gently, but even that feels like a betrayal. Any movement, any refusal is another tick on a growing list. He doesn't repeat himself. Instead, he stands, walks slowly behind you. You hear him reach for something, a belt, maybe a strap. You don't turn. You don't dare. Your shoulders rise, bracing for what might come. But nothing comes. The waiting becomes the punishment. The mind, unoccupied, becomes its own tormentor. You begin to wonder what he is waiting for, what they want, what you are supposed to confess. You think of names, of events, of things you might have said or done, harmless things, misunderstood things. Could that be it? You want to explain. You want to be believed, but you are beginning to understand. Belief is not the goal. Compliance is. The paper still lies on the table. You glance at it again. It does not move, but it seems to grow in size. In meaning, you begin to wonder what would happen if you wrote something, anything. Would they stop? There is a coldness in the air now, not from weather, but from anticipation, the kind that settles into your bones. You begin to ask yourself questions, not the ones they asked, but your own. How long can I hold out? What if they never stop? What if I never leave this room? And that's when the door opens again. This time, the man who enters doesn't speak at all. He sets something down on the table next to the parchment, a thin leather strap. He doesn't point to it, doesn't explain. He just places it there, as if to say, choose. You stare at the strap, then at the blank parchment, then at your own hands, resting limp in your lap. You realize this is the moment they were building toward, the illusion of choice, the suggestion that it's in your hands, that you control what comes next. But you know better. It's not a choice. It's a corridor. One door leads to suffering, the other to self-erasure. Either way, you lose something. You sit in silence. You do not cry. You do not scream. You do not beg, but you do begin to imagine writing. What would you say? Would you invent names, accusations? Would you copy their words or craft your own? Would they even read it, or does it simply need to exist? You feel the weight of the strap next to you. You hear the silence grow deeper. The room watches you, as if it breathes with you, waits with you. This is confession, not a moment, a pressure. Eventually, you speak, not to them, to yourself, a whisper. What do they want? But even you know the answer. They want you broken in a way that looks like cooperation, a signature, a mark, a yielding. It doesn't matter if it's true. It only matters that you give it freely, or appear to. You do not touch the strap. You do not reach for the parchment. You close your eyes instead. And in the dark behind your eyelids, you see it. Not the room, but the idea of yourself leaving it. Not victorious, not intact, but still yourself. They may take many things, but not your voice, not today. When your eyes open, the room is empty again. The paper remains. You sit with it, knowing the moment will return. The strap, the questions, maybe something worse, but for now, you are still whole. In this place, that is everything. That night, in your cell again, you don't sleep. You lie on the cold stone, your arms crossed, not in comfort, but in defiance of exhaustion. Your eyes stay open, long after the torchlight fades from the hallway. You hear the silence, and in it, you hear yourself, your breath, your heartbeat, your refusal. You were given a chance to make it stop. You said no. You don't feel brave. You don't feel strong. You feel scared, spent, and brittle. But the paper remained blank, and sometimes that is the only victory there is. Small, invisible, uncelebrated, but yours. And as the night folds itself around you, you begin to understand, in a place where truth is shaped by force, your silence is a form of truth too. They will ask again. They will bring back the strap, the paper, the quiet questions. But for tonight, they do not have your confession. And sometimes, surviving the day, with your name, your voice, your silence intact, is all that survival needs to mean. It is not victory, it is not freedom, but it is presence. And in this place, that presence, unbroken, unbent, is the closest thing to power you still possess. So you close your eyes, not in sleep, but in quiet revolt, and prepare for the morning, which always comes too soon. And in the silence that follows, your breath becomes the only sound you trust, steady, human, your own, echoing softly in a world that tried to take even that away. It is not much, but it is something. And in a medieval prison, something, a breath, a thought, a refusal, is everything. The darkness may return, the questions may never stop. But tonight, you are still here, and that too is a kind of defiance. Chapter 8. The Other Prisoners. You are not alone. Even if your cell is solitary, the presence of others leaks in through cracks and corridors, murmurs behind walls, the shuffle of footsteps, the coughs, the moans, the distant echoes of someone no longer trying to be heard. These are not ghosts. They are the living, the barely living, the almost forgotten. The first time you hear them, it's unintentional. A cough in the middle of your stillness. You sit up, you listen. Then another voice, hoarse and low, not a cry, not a scream, just speech. A question maybe, or a prayer, then silence again. You begin to notice when they move, their rhythms, when food arrives. When chains clatter, you learn the difference between the guard's boots and the dragging of shackles. You begin to sense who moves often and who no longer does. Eventually, you speak, not loud, a whisper through the stone. You don't know if they'll answer, but eventually, someone does. A voice almost surprised. You don't see a face. You don't need to. In the dark, names become less important than sound. Connection does not come from identity. It comes from rhythm, from memory, from returning words. You learn their stories, not all at once, not fully, pieces, moments. What they choose to share, what they remember, what they can't forget. They ask your name. You hesitate, then you give it. And in doing so, you become real again. They tell you about the one in the far cell. The man who no longer speaks. No one has heard his voice in weeks, maybe months. Some say he's mad. Others say he's meditating, waiting, praying. There's the woman 3 cells down. She hums when she's alone, but stops whenever the guards walk by. Her voice is soft, always the same melody. A lullaby, maybe. No one asks her why she's here. No one needs to. Everyone here is innocent, or guilty, or both. A boy younger than most speaks in questions, as if everything still confuses him. The stone, the dark, the rules of silence. He whispers your name too often. It breaks your heart. And then there's the one you never hear, but the others speak of him. They say he used to be a priest, or a scholar, or a thief. His story changes with each voice that tells it, but everyone agrees on one thing. He's the one who tried to escape. They say he reached the outer wall. They say he made it to the river. They say he was brought back. No one saw him after that. His cell door still closes at night. That's all anyone knows. You find yourself listening more than speaking. There's comfort in their stories, even when they're unfinished, even when they hurt. Because the worst thing is not pain, not hunger, not cold. It's being alone in it, and now you're not. One night, someone tells a story, not of the prison, but of the world outside. A market they once walked through. The smell of bread, the sound of coins exchanging hands, the weight of sunlight on skin. It is not a remarkable memory, and yet, it silences everyone. You sit there, your back against cold stone, and you imagine it, not just the scene, but the feeling of it, being among people, free people, people who have never touched these walls. It feels distant, like a dream someone else had. The voice goes quiet, then another picks up. A different story. A river. A festival. A girl's laughter. No one interrupts. No one questions whether it's real. because it doesn't matter. In here, stories are currency, their warmth, a reminder of life before the cell, and the possibility, however faint, of life after it. Even silence feels different now. It's not empty, it's shared. Sometimes, you and another prisoner will speak in the smallest fragments, one word a day, a name, a question, an echo. It is enough. One night, someone doesn't answer. You call again. Still nothing. A quiet longer than usual. Then a voice, not theirs, says simply, "Gone." You feel it in your stomach. Not like news, but like loss. You didn't know their face, only their sound, their breath, their rhythm. But it's enough to miss. You sit with that, with what's left of them. In time you learn to map the world by sound. The shuffle of bare feet, the clink of water bowls, the murmurs after midnight, the sudden silence when a door opens. You know who scratches the wall at night, who sings only after rain, who mumbles numbers as they count something. Maybe days, maybe regrets, and you learn their rhythms, like music. It becomes a kind of communion, this invisible gathering of the broken. You are not friends, not quite, not allies either. You are more than that, and less. You are witnesses to each other's slow unraveling, to each other's tiny acts of endurance. One prisoner prays each morning, loudly, fearlessly, not for release, but for strength. Some scoff, others weep. You listen, because the words are a kind of light, and you've learned to follow even the dimmest flicker. There is one, they say, who still believes he will be freed. He tells stories of what he'll do, what he'll eat, where he'll walk. He speaks of open sky with such certainty. It sounds like memory. You don't have the heart to argue, because something in you hopes he sets right, even if he isn't set. One night, you speak to him. What if they never let us go? He doesn't set answer right away. Then softly, then let Sets not forget what waiting felt like. You understand more than you expected, because sometimes the only freedom left is the refusal to forget who you were before all this began. There are moments, rare and brief, when laughter returns, not loud, not wild, but real. A comment passed through stone, a joke about the guards, a memory too absurd not to share. And suddenly, laughter, rusty, cautious, bubbles up between cells like spring water through cracks. You find yourself smiling in the dark, surprised that your face still remembers how. And in that moment, the prison seems a little less victorious. Even the guards notice. One of them bangs on the bars, shouting for silence. But the damage is done. The sound of your laughter lingers longer than his threats. It is not rebellion. It is not revolution. It is something quieter, survival, dressed in humor. Later you think about those who came before you, the voices you never heard, the ones no one mentions anymore. You wonder if they laughed, if they whispered, if they reached out like this, or if they simply faded, cell by cell, story by story. The thought terrifies you. And so you resolve, quietly, not to vanish that way. You will speak, you will remember names, you will pass them along, like torches, flickering but not yet gone. Because in a place designed to erase you, memory is the only resistance that cannot be chained. And so you whisper each name you know, even when no one answers. Especially then, days blur. The voice of the boy becomes quieter. The woman hums less often. Some voices vanish altogether, like mist evaporating before you can name it. You keep track, though not with marks on a wall. You mark time by absences. He didn't speak today. Her voice didn't rise with the morning. No prayer echoed. You say their names anyway, in the order you remember them. Sometimes in rhythm, sometimes in a whisper, sometimes just to feel them shape your breath. You've become something you never imagined. A keeper of names, of moments, of sounds. No one asked you to. No one thanked you. But it feels important, vital, even. Because if no one remembers them, who were they ever? You begin to make up names for the ones you never met. The ones whose footsteps faded before you arrived. The ones the guards spoke of in passing. The ones whose meals stopped arriving. You don't know their faces, but you imagine their stories, their voices, their silences, and in doing so, they live a little longer. In this place, that's the closest thing to immortality. A whisper, a memory, a name carried forward one breath at a time. Some nights, you speak aloud, not to any one prisoner, but to the dark itself. You tell the walls what you remember, the way your mother tied her hair in the mornings, the crackle of firewood under stew pots, the sound of your name when spoken in affection instead of accusation. You speak slowly, gently, so the memories do not break. You think of the ones who can no longer speak, who may no longer remember, and so you carry them too. Their moments, their fragments, their human weight. You realize without ceremony that the prison has made you into something you did not expect. Not just a survivor, but a vessel for sound, for story, for sorrow. You do not know if you'll leave this place. But if you do, you want to take something with you. Not revenge, not even justice, but the soft, persistent memory of those who waited beside you in the dark, whose breath you matched for comfort, whose names you whispered long after their voices faded. You do not believe you'll be remembered in stories, but maybe, just maybe, you'll be remembered in someone else's silence. The way they pause, the way they whisper, the way they endure. And that, in the end, is enough. The voices remain long after the bodies are gone. Even if you leave, even if the doors open and the world swallows you back into its chaos, they will echo. Not always as words, sometimes as instinct, as the hush you fall into when you hear footsteps, as the way you count without realizing, as the whisper you carry, unspoken, in the pit of your memory. One day, far from here, you might smell bread again, hear laughter, feel the heat of sunlight, not filtered through bars, and something in you will pause, not in fear, but in reverence, because those things, light, warmth, air, were once stories passed between the lost, and now they are real again. And for a moment, you will close your eyes, and you will say a name, one of theirs, any of theirs, and in that whisper, you will return the favor. You will be the proof they existed. You will be the voice they left behind, not to haunt, but to remember, not to grieve, but to honor, and that will be your freedom. Theirs too, so you carry them forward, not as ghosts, but as companions, in the way you walk, in the way you listen, in the quiet strength you no longer question. The prison could not keep you, not all of you. Some part escaped in every story told, in every name remembered, in every night survived with nothing but breath and will, and that part will live on, in you and through you, for as long as you let it, and somewhere, in the hush between heartbeats, they are still with you. You do not speak of the prison often, not out loud, but it shapes how you listen, how you sit with others, how you leave space for silence without rushing to fill it. You walk softer, you notice shadows, you remember to say names, and when the night is long and sleep is slow to come, you find yourself whispering once more, not out of fear, but remembrance. You are the echo now, and the echo is enough, because no one truly vanishes, as long as someone, somewhere, still remembers the sound of their voice. Chapter 9. The smell of rot and time. Before the cell steals your strength, before the silence rearranges your thoughts, it is the smell that greets you first. It is not a single scent, not something you can name. It is a mixture, layered, changing, settling into your nose until you no longer question it. Damp stone, old sweat, the sharpness of rust, the sickly sweet note of mold. Somewhere in it, decay. It lives in the walls, in the air, in your clothes, on your skin. At first, you recoil, you cover your nose, you breathe shallow, you hope, foolishly, that you will grow used to it. You don't, not really. Your senses dull to survive it. But they never forget, not entirely. It's always there, like background noise in your nostrils. Like a second presence in the room. It clings to your hair, your fingers, the inside of your mouth. You dream in it, wake in it, speak into it, and the more days pass, the more it becomes a measure of time itself. Not hours, not days, but saturation. How deep the stench has sunk into you, how much of it is now yours. There is a spot in the corner of your cell where the damp never dries, a persistent wetness that seeps from the wall, or perhaps rises from beneath the stone. You no longer remember if it was always there, or if it grew over time, like a wound that refused to close. You used to avoid it, sleeping with your back to the opposite side, placing what little you owned as far from it as possible. But space is limited, and time reshapes priorities. You learn to live beside the damp, to fold yourself smaller, to forget that comfort ever mattered. In the evenings, the moisture thickens. The air hangs heavy, and the smell ripens. Sometimes it reminds you of spoiled fruit, other times of old blood. There are moments when it smells almost human, like breath after days without water, or skin left too long beneath cloth. When you wake in the dark, gasping from sleep, it's the smell that reminds you where you are, not the walls, not the quiet, but the weight of rot in your lungs. You no longer know if it's the cell that stinks, or if the smell now comes from you. This thought does not disturb you as much as it should. There are rumors about what's behind the far wall. Some say a corpse buried shallow, forgotten by all but the bricks. Others whisper of a flooded cell sealed decades ago, the bodies never removed, just locked away behind a new row of stone. When the air grows thick and the wind shifts down the corridor, that scent, that sour, impossible scent, seems to confirm it. You tell yourself it doesn't matter. Stories are ways of surviving time, and in here, time needs taming. Still, you breathe more carefully after hearing them. You sit farther from the wall. You wake faster when the scent shifts, because even if there are no bones, even if it's only mildew and iron and the rot of too many bodies pressed too close for too long, the mind makes what it needs to make, and sometimes fear keeps you human. There are nights when you forget what clean air smelled like, not the absence of stink, but the presence of something light. Grass, citrus, flower, smoke. You try to recall the scent of soap, of a lover's skin, of your own breath after laughing. But it's hard. Memory fades in the presence of constant rot. The rot becomes a presence, not a scent, but a thing, like a shadow that does not shift with the light, or a breath that's not quite yours. You begin to talk to it, not with words, but with habits. You avoid the corner. You eat facing the door. You press your blanket, thin as it is, tight around your nose. It is not protection. It is ritual. The guards say nothing of the smell. They walk through it as though it's air. Maybe they no longer notice. Maybe they never cared. Or maybe they take comfort in it. A reminder of power, of lives reduced to stench. Once, a guard left the door open. A moment too long. A breeze wandered in. Real, living air. You closed your eyes and held your breath, hoping to trap the freshness in your lungs. It left too quickly. The rot rushed back, offended by the intrusion, like it had been displaced, and returned angry. It felt thicker after, almost personal, as though it wanted you to remember that even small reliefs come with a cost. You never hoped for open doors again. You only learned to breathe smaller. Sometimes the rot reminds you of people, not specific ones, but types. The sourness of mold, like the breath of a man who drank too much and spoke too closely. The sharp bite of rust, like the smell of coins clutched too long in a nervous hand. The deeper, wet scent, like the wool of a coat soaked in rain and never quite dried. You find comfort in these comparisons. It turns the cell into something knowable, not clean, not kind, but familiar. Other prisoners speak of it too, not in full conversations, but in fragments. It's worse tonight, someone mutters. Smells like death. Another grumbles. You don't reply, but you nod in the dark. Acknowledgement, shared without eye contact. One night, someone whispers, "I think it's inside me now." No one answers, but everyone hears. You feel it too. The way it seems to cling deeper, not just to your skin, but beneath it, as though you are fermenting, as though your body, by still existing, offends the air itself. You wonder if the guards can smell it on you when you're led out, if it marks you the way chains do, if it will ever wash off. In dreams, you sometimes escape the rot. You wake in fields. You stand beneath trees. You smell things you forgot existed. Pine sap, warm bread, rain on stone. But even in dreams, the rot waits. It never truly leaves. It seeps into the corner of the dream like a slow tide, darkening the grass, staining the air. Then you wake with the taste of it on your tongue, bitter and unearned. There is no moment in the cell untouched by it. It flavors the water, even when it's fresh. It dulls the hunger for food, making even the smallest crumb taste sour. It gets into the fabric of your thoughts. You begin to think in heaviness, in thickness. Your memories carry the scent. Your fears feel damp. Even hope becomes heavier, bloated, slow, uncertain. And in this slow erosion of the senses, you realize something strange. You are still here. You are not clean. You are not whole, but you endure. And somehow, that means the rot has not won. Not completely. Not yet. Rot becomes your calendar. You mark time by its shifts. How strong it is in the morning. How it deepens after the guards pass. How it seems to settle in the evenings like a fog. There's a rhythm to it, though no clock ticks. And in that rhythm, you begin to track other things too. How often the guard coughs, when the scraping sounds in the next cell begin, when the silence stretches too long and feels like absence instead of peace. The stench is a metronome for your days. Each breath, a beat, each whiff, a moment ticked away. Sometimes you wonder what your lungs look like now, what color your breath would be if it could be seen, if like smoke, it would carry traces of the prison, thick, gray, with hints of old metal and moss. You once believed you'd forget the smell if you ever left. Now you suspect it will follow you, kiling to your memory like mildew on cloth. Never sharp, never fresh, just there, a quiet presence. A final proof that you were once held in a place that forgot what light smells like. You try to remember a time when scent meant joy, fresh linen on a warm line, a cup of broth in cold weather. In cold weather, ink on parchment, sweat on skin, not foul but intimate, part of love, part of living. But the longer you stay, the harder it is to recall clearly. Pleasure fades fastest. Pain lingers. You once thought memory was strongest when tied to emotion. Now you learn it is strongest when tied to survival. And the rot is a survivor. It endures where you endure. It shares your space, your sleep, your skin. One day, a rat dies in the far corner of the hall. You hear the others shift, complain. The guards laugh. But you do not notice the difference. Not right away. That's how deep it's gotten, how complete the saturation. There is no moment now untouched by the weight of the air. Even dreams carry its taste. Even silence has its scent. You no longer fight it. You breathe it in, not out of surrender, but necessity. Because in this place, your breath is the only freedom you have left. And even that is shared. And then, one day, a breeze comes again. You don't expect it. You barely feel it. Just a whisper. A tremble of air too faint to be real. But it's there. It carries no perfume, no promise, only difference. Enough for your body to notice. Enough for the rot to retreat. Slightly. You do not cry. There is no joy. Just a pause, a breath that does not burn. You close your eyes and say nothing, because this moment is not escape. It is reminder of the world beyond, of a time before the cell, and perhaps faintly, of a time after. The rot returns, of course. It always does. But for that one moment, your lungs remembered light. And that is enough. For now, afterward, everything smells heavier again. You wish you could remember the breeze more clearly. You wish you had inhaled more deeply. But memory in this place is shaped like the walls, grey, uneven, and always slightly damp. Still, that one breath lives somewhere inside you, like a coal, not enough to warm you, but too stubborn to die. Some nights, you sit with your back to the wall, eyes closed, breathing slowly. You do not pray, you do not plead. You simply remember that moment when air shifted and your body, forgotten by comfort for so long, suddenly remembered it was alive. It is strange what becomes sacred, not sunlight, not freedom, but a breath, unspoiled, unscented, alive. And if you ever leave this place, it will not be the stone you remember, not the chains, not the silence. It will be the smell and the breath that was not part of it. That one breath, yours, untouched. It is not the suffering you carry with you, but the reminder that even in the darkest, most fetid corners of existence, the smallest, briefest shift, a change in scent, a breeze, a breath, can mark the boundary between despair and endurance. And for those who survived the cell, that is what remains, not freedom, not revenge, but the memory of one untainted breath. A proof that you were still human, even here, because in the end, survival is not always loud. It does not always scream or struggle. Sometimes it is as quiet as a breath that refuses to match the scent of the stone, as still as lungs that inhale what they must, and exhale something untouched, something that still belongs to you. And in that silent defiance, you endure. You are still here. There is no clear moment when a sentence ends in a medieval prison. For some, the end arrives with death, quiet or violent, expected or not. For others, the ending is less definitive. A door opens, a guard gestures, and suddenly the world beyond the cell is real again. But even that is not truly an ending. Not in the way stories end, not in the way people expect things to conclude. You may be let out, but the prison does not stay behind. It follows in breath and memory, in the way you flinch at sound, or tense at shadows, or forget what sunlight feels like on your skin without fear. Some never leave, even if their feet cross thresholds. And some, even if they do not die inside, leave parts of themselves buried in the stone, bits of thought, voice, warmth. The truth is, the cell ends, but the confinement does not. It shifts shape. It finds other walls. It lives in the silence between laughter, in the absence of hunger, where appetite should return, in the loneliness felt even in a crowd. This, then, is the chapter with no clean ending. Just like the cell, you notice it first in the way people look at you. Their eyes hesitate, not out of judgment, but uncertainty, as if they sense something different, something heavy, as if your presence disrupts a rhythm. They're not aware they follow. You speak less, because words no longer come easily. In the cell, silence was safety. Speech could bring trouble, misunderstanding, punishment. So now, even when free, your tongue remembers restraint. You sleep lightly. You eat cautiously. You move like a guest in your own life. This isn't what freedom was supposed to feel like. You imagined light, warmth, laughter. Instead, it feels like walking barefoot on gravel. Every step a reminder that softness is a memory, not a given. People ask questions, sometimes kindly, sometimes not. What was it like? Was it really that bad? Did you deserve it? You do not always answer. Not because you're hiding anything, but because the answers live in a language they do not speak. A language shaped by shadow and rot, by steel and silence. How do you explain to someone that the worst part wasn't the pain, or the cold, or even the fear? It was the forgetting of who you were before. You begin to understand that survival is not the same as healing. People think that because you lived, you are whole. But you are not a vase that broke and was glued back together. You are more like cloth left out in the rain, faded, thinned, frayed at the edges, and still, you are expected to be useful, present, pleasant. You become good at hiding the hollowness, at laughing when you're meant to, at listening without hearing, at being in the room without feeling like you belong to it. The cell taught you how to disappear without moving. Now the world rewards that trick. They call you strong. They say you've adjusted well. They admire your calm. They don't know that calm was born from a place where noise meant danger and movement meant pain. That your stillness is not peace, but residue. You do not correct them. You let them believe in your recovery, because to correct them would be to invite them into the cell with you. And some places, once seen, can never be unseen. Even kindness cannot survive that. You think often about time, not in hours or days, but in distance. How far you've come from that space. How near it still feels. Sometimes, a scent pulls you back. The scent of iron, or mold, or old sweat in fabric. Sometimes it's sound. The rattle of chains on a wagon, the clink of metal cutlery, the scrape of a boot on stone. You do not return fully, but something inside you flinches. You have learned not to show it. To the world you seem quiet, maybe even serene, but inside you are always listening. You walk with care, speak with measure. Even joy feels cautious. This is the prison after the prison, a place built from memory, habit, fear. It has no guards, no bars, no key, and yet it holds you. You wonder if you will ever be truly free, if one day you'll laugh without checking who hears, if you'll sleep without waking at every shift in air, if you'll forget the weight of that silence, the kind that isn't peace, but suppression. You do not wish for vengeance. You do not even wish for justice. You only wish to forget how not to breathe. Time outside moves faster than it did in the cell. People speak in schedules and deadlines, talk about plans for tomorrow, for next year, for decades ahead. But you still live in the pace of confinement. You mark days by light and meals, not calendars. You don't think in futures. You think in moments. You learn to pretend, to nod along when people speak of vacations and weddings and promotions. You learn the names of streets again. You train your hands to trust forks and cups made of glass. But there is always a slowness to you. Not of mind, but of memory, like someone coming out of a fog who must reassemble the world one corner at a time. You sit sometimes in parks or near windows, just to watch. The way people move, laugh, touch, scold, kiss. There is wonder in it, not jealousy, not quite envy, just a quiet ache, as if you're remembering a life you once had in a dream. Or a story you read long ago, where the characters didn't live in fear of being watched, weighed, or worn down. You do not mourn the cell, but you mourn who you might have been, had it never touched you. You come to understand that the body holds memory differently than the mind. Your back aches in certain positions, not because of age, but because of the hours spent curled on stone. Your eyes adjust quickly to darkness, not out of ability, but habit. Your breath shortens in narrow spaces, not from lack of air, but from what you once associated with walls that closed in. You find yourself apologizing for things you did not do, for fears that no one else sees. You apologize for being too quiet, too slow, too cautious. People wave it off, laugh gently, tell you to relax, but they do not see the cost of those apologies. They do not know that each one chips away at something you've only just begun to rebuild. You long to explain, not for sympathy, but for clarity. But the words always feel too large, too raw, too close to a truth that does not want to be touched. So you stay silent, and in that silence you build your own peace, not from forgetting, but from allowing the wound to be seen, even if only by yourself. The seasons help you mark time again. Spring feels unfamiliar, its warmth almost suspicious, its blossoms too delicate to trust. Summer brings noise, laughter, life spilled out into streets and fields. You watch it from a distance at first, unsure if you are allowed to take part. Autumn soothes you more. The slowing, the soft dying, the turning inward, it mirrors something inside you. And winter, harsh though it is, reminds you that you've survived worse. That cold does not frighten you, not in the same way. That silence can be chosen now, not enforced. You begin to find rituals again, not prayers or ceremonies, just small, steady actions. Folding clothes, making tea, lighting a candle, watching light shift across a wall. They do not erase the past, but they build a frame around the present. And that, some days, is enough. People still ask sometimes why you don't talk more about what happened. You smile. You say, "Because I am still learning how to live." It is not an answer they expect, but it is the most honest one you have. Eventually, you stop counting the days since release, not because they no longer matter, but because they no longer define you. You wake up, and your first thought is not the weight of stone or the fear of footsteps. You go to sleep, and your body remembers calm more often than it remembers tension. Not always, not completely, but enough. You begin to reclaim time. You speak to strangers. You share a meal without apology. You laugh once and realize it came from your chest, not your mask. And when the memories come, as they still do, you greet them like old weather. You let them pass through. You no longer brace against every gust. This is not triumph. It is not redemption. It is not a tale of victory. It is simply this: a life, continuing, a breath, followed by another. A person, reshaped, but not erased. You were broken. You were held. You were forgotten. And now, you are here. And that, quietly, stubbornly, softly, is enough. Sometimes you wonder if anyone can really understand what it means to come back from such absence. You weren't just gone from a place, you were gone from yourself. And in that time, the world moved on. People aged, children grew, streets changed names, shops opened and closed. You re-enter a world that has no memory of your pause, so you become a question mark in conversations, a name some remember with pity, a face others squint at, trying to recall where they knew you from. You are here, but not quite, not fully. You build routines not because you enjoy them, but because they help you hold time still, just long enough to remind yourself you are not lost. You clean your space. You water a plant. You write lists you may never follow. These are anchors, and they matter, because in a life where so much was once taken, your voice, your pace, your comfort, even the smallest choice feels like a quiet rebellion. You are not better, you are not whole, but you are here. And that, perhaps, is the only ending this chapter needs. The quiet insistence that you are still here. There are no medals for surviving something that tried to erase you. No ceremonies, no applause, just the quiet return to a life that feels unfamiliar. And in that quiet, you begin to shape something new. You plant things that take time to grow, not because you're patient, but because you're learning to be. You read books not to escape, but to remember how stories work, beginnings, middles, endings, and how yours still unfolds. You find moments where nothing hurts. You don't rush through them, you let them linger. You speak a little louder, not to be heard, but to hear yourself. You keep walking, even on days when the weight returns, even when the air feels too still, even when the past knocks at the edge of your breath, because this is what healing looks like. Not erasure, not perfection, but presence. And every step is a testament that you are still choosing to live. Not because it's easy, but because you can. That is your ending. Not a full stop, but a breath. And then, another. There are no fireworks in your return. No crowds. No celebrations. No music swells. Just a door. A breath. A beginning. And yet that beginning is everything. You learn to appreciate the pauses, to notice the hush between the beats of life. You walk slowly, not because of fear, but because there is value in each step. You listen not to respond, but to absorb. You sit with yourself, unafraid of the silence. There are nights when it all comes back. The weight, the darkness, the grief, but there are mornings too. And morning means another chance. Another chapter that didn't end where they thought it might. You carry your past, not as a burden now, but as a thread woven into your fabric. It doesn't define you, it shapes you, and you, fragile but steadfast, move forward, not to escape what was behind, but to live fully with what remains ahead. This is your freedom, quiet, earned, and deeply your own. There are days when you no longer think about the cell. They come slowly, without announcement. A full morning where your mind isn't occupied by echoes or regrets. An afternoon where you laugh without flinching. These are small victories. You do not celebrate them out loud, but you notice them. You begin to realize that healing doesn't look like forgetting. It looks like planting something in the ashes. A habit, a friendship, a meal shared without silence. You still carry the weight, but now you know how to set it down, even for a while. And in those moments, you feel light again. Not like the person you were before, but someone new, someone formed in the stillness, the struggle, the waiting. Someone who knows the value of warmth, of light, of time spent in the open. You no longer count the scars. You trace them only when you need reminding, not of pain, but of survival. And in that quiet tracing, in that small moment of breath and stillness, you find your way forward, not to an ending, but to a beginning that asks for nothing more than presence. You are here, and that finally is enough.